But if you're still living at the end of the term, you get back all the money you paid, guaranteed. Spend it any way you wish. While others may talk about saving you money, Senior Life is the only one giving it all back. Return of premium term life insurance gives you protection if you need it.
Hello, Maurice. We're just gonna wait for people to show up.
Hi, Maria. Yeah, I'm a little early, just in case, you know.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
That's good. Good to see you too.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hallelujah. Hey, Pat.
Hey, John, it doesn't look like that my face is going to come up tonight, but I'm the one with the railing.
I know who you are and what you look like.
It's just a detail of a balcony railing.
Yeah, Frank Lloyd Wright.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, John?
Pretty good. Hey, Maurice.
Good evening, everybody.
Dan is coming. Lynn is going to try, and Helen will be trying. There we go. There's Helen. Maria?
Yes.
I use different emails, but the email Helen does work. The one for Pat is wrong, and Michael Taku has had it wrong for apparently a year.
Oh, God.
That's why you only get it when I forward stuff. Sorry about that. I just discovered it when.
Well, I should have noticed it myself. I apologize.
And Lynn Sutherland does have both emails, but she more actively uses AZ Gypsies.
Yeah, we sent the list of emails that you provided, John, to the clerk's office.
Okay, yeah.
So they could update the roster as well.
Well, they sent out a funny cancellation notice to those old emails for the meeting tonight. So they all called me to go, are we having a meeting? Yeah, it was a strange day.
Hi, this is Annalisa for Studio Sama. I am on the agenda with you all this evening for a new project in Armory Park.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
It's the only case. We've just got a little housekeeping and we can't
Sure.
start the meeting for another minute.
Okay.
We technically have a quorum and we could probably start right on time and then see if, nope, there she is. We are all here.
So, Annalisa, I'm gonna be making you a co-host so you're able to share your screen when your time comes to present.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have all people here and it's 6:30. Shall I go ahead and begin?
Yes, Mr. Chair, would you like me to share the screen, or how do you usually do this?
I don't need it for commentary.
Okay.
All right. I'm John Burr. I'm the chair. I'm calling the meeting of the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board to order at 6:30 via Zoom. This is a virtual meeting only, and the minutes should reflect that. We have a full quorum. All 6 of us are here, so I'll go through roll call. I'm here. Helen?
Here.
Great. Pat?
Here.
Maurice?
Hi.
Great. Stan?
Here.
Great. And Lynn, thank you for joining us.
Here.
Bingo. All right. Maria posted my version of the draft minutes, which also included excerpts that I got in for the plans review subcommittee when they looked at the park. We could excise off those things for the final draft when it gets posted, but for the content of the meeting, did it look okay?
I didn't see anything wrong.
Anybody else? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the legal action report, the draft minutes as the legal action report for the 11/19/2024 meeting as presented?
Yes, I will support the motion.
Thanks, Maurice.
Second.
Second
Second.
is Stan. Great. All right, roll call vote. I say aye. Helen?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Maurice?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
And Lynn?
Aye.
Great, they passed 6-0. Maria, did you get any comments back either by the 15th or 16th, depending upon which agenda somebody looked at?
No, we did not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I haven't heard any other feedback. All right, we'll move on to item 4, reviews. We have a courtesy review tonight. The first one, well, it is TP-PRE 1024-00247, 719 South 4th Avenue. And it's an extensive remodel alteration to the existing buildings. Removal of walls, veranda roof, pergola, rainwater tanks, relocate condenser, add floor benches, outdoor kitchen, garage, pool cabana, doors, windows, shades, structures, and demolish carports. And Annalisa, could is it spelled the way it sounds?
It's no, it's probably it's the ANNHELIZA. Annalisa.
Okay. And your last name?
Jordan. JORDAAN.
Great, thank you. I'll get it right in the minutes this way.
Okay.
And do you have screen sharing? Do you want to go over your proposal?
Sure.
For the record, I did send out the historic property record card for the property to the board earlier today from our files.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
And then can you see
Yes.
my cursor when I move it around? Doesn't
Yes.
always come up. Yeah? Okay. So I haven't done one of these presentations yet, so I don't know how much you guys need to know about me, and how much detail I would need to show in terms of like existing conditions. So just a little bit on myself, like I've been practicing architecture for like 14 years, and I'm originally from South Africa. And I came to Tucson to work for Studio Rick Joy. and I worked there for 8 years before starting my own practice earlier this year. And the project I'm showing you guys tonight is for a client who currently lives in the barrio, and they've outgrown their existing property, and they've bought this property at 719 South 4th Avenue. And they are hoping to do the remodels to this property and the additions so that we can reconfigure its existing arrangement, which is currently more broken up in terms of like layouts, so that because it was like a multi-family, there's multiple kitchens and lounge spaces, etc. And we want to essentially reconfigure the floor plan arrangement so that it can function as one larger house for them with
This is
certain-
Helen. I'm sorry to break in, but if people outside could mute themselves, we wouldn't have the background noise. So if everybody could mute themselves if they're not talking. There's a bird there somewhere.
Okay, is that better?
I think it worked.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through I won't go through this portion of the text. I will talk about this portion more when the visuals come up. This is also the document that I'll use to submit to the city. So everything that's kind of like in that portion of the text, I'll just talk through that. So like I mentioned, the project is located in 4th Avenue and therefore the historic preservation zone. And as this is the property that I mentioned, it's essentially a northern building that has 2 units in it, and then the southern building, and an existing casita towards the back and an existing carport. And what we would like to do is do an arrangement of the program in here so that the clients can use it as one primary residence. And then we will do nothing to the casita. And then where the existing carport is at the moment, we will add a double garage instead with a cabana space and a pool towards the back. So I'm just going to flick through these pages just so that it's just kind of for you guys to see the existing property. And tell me if I need to go slower or faster. So elevation on 4th Avenue, and there's another slide where I can talk about what the changes would be. And then the elevation on South Railroad towards the back of the property, where you can see the entry for the casita and the carport. And then these are the kind of elevation photographs that the review process requires. So this is essentially the interior, the entry courtyard looking towards the north, then entry courtyard looking towards the south, and then the entry to the courtyard from 4th Avenue through the left-hand picture, that's the door. And then there's like a dividing wall between this entry courtyard currently and a central courtyard, and that's the picture on the right. And these are just a little bit more perspective views of that courtyard. And then once you've gone through that dividing wall, there's what I'm referring to as the central courtyard. So this is an elevation of the northern building, but so looking north in that courtyard, looking south in the courtyard, and then the wall we just walked through from the entry courtyard, and then looking towards the backyard. So as you move through the property. And then just some perspective views to get a better sense of what that space is at the moment. And then this is the elevation at the back end of the southern building, where there's an existing outdoor kitchen and a covered roof space. And then there's a small section towards the south of the southern building. So these are just some views of that within that setback. And in the northern building, this is just a view of that end of the building. And then kind of standing in the backyard where you can see the southern building, the white one on the left, and in the northern building, the green one on the right. And then here you can get a sense of the existing backyard condition. And then turning around, facing towards the east, where you can see the casita on the right and the existing carport on the left. That again has a dividing garden wall from the main backyard to that space. Existing carport, existing casita. And then there's just a couple of photographs for like the area, like looking straight out onto 4th and kind of diagonally along the street views to get a sense of the character. And then similarly in Railroad, standing right at the edge of my property, looking north and then looking south. And then these are a little montage to do 4th Avenue between East 17th and East 18th. So it's just that one block with the site allocated. And then similarly in Railroad, again, so we can just see like what the conditions are like in that alley space. And then when we get to the material choices, this would be why I'm pulling this up, like the character of the Armory Park, the use of the basalt rock throughout the neighborhood is very beautiful and has a really great historical quality. So we're hoping to use some of that within the project for walls, for garden walls similar to these. And then looking at some reference precedents for Armory Park where there's oversized entry doors into either the residence space or the courtyards beyond. And then similarly, characters may exist like this one in the barrio. And then when we have walls on the property lines where existing openings, doors or windows were removed to create a void or an opening to a courtyard space beyond. And I'm pulling these up because there's instances of this in the project. So it's just kind of referring to like the character of the quality that we will maintain in terms of the rhythm of the facade, stays consistent even when you do that move to have a connection to what's beyond the wall. These are inserted because of the request for a relaxed setback along railway, where I've gone through the length of railway to understand how many properties do exist on the lot line. Because we would like to request that for the placement of our garage structure. So these are just a couple of pages kind of like grabbing the properties that's already got that waiver or relaxed setback. So it's again like this kind of picking up on the character that's pre-existing. This slide is I think a good overall to show the two top axonometric views shows the existing property with the blue dashed lines, the pieces that we are hoping to demolish. So the first one looking from the northeast, so essentially from railway north corner. There's some planters towards the back, rainwater tanks, that existing roof structure over the outdoor kitchen that I pulled up earlier. There are these fenced in areas that essentially created kind of private courts when the buildings were subdivided into the multiple units. So we want to be removing these kind of fenced courts. And then in the entry courtyard and in the central courtyard, there are some kind of aesthetical just steel beams inserted in that space, which we would be removing. And then just looking from the other way, from 4th Avenue, similarly, you can just kind of see demolition of carport and then the items that I mentioned as well. Then directly below that is the proposed massing, so that one can directly compare like the quality of the massing, the rhythms, the solids and the voids, stays consistent in like the character. And then you can see here what we will be proposing. So the first application we are working on right now will only be a remodel of the southern building with the additions of the entry space roof, the outdoor kitchen / lounge space, and then the double garage and pool cabana. We won't be doing any of the remodel work to any of the northern building internally. There are small elevation remodels on window and door placement, primarily for this axis point, where we are trying to create a hierarchy to really guide you to a sense of arrival as you enter the courtyard, because there's multiple doors in these buildings. So it's creating this entry terrace. So there's larger doors going in both the north and the south building to kind of indicate that hierarchy for the front door, essentially, once you've moved through the courtyard. And then looking at this view, like a slightly larger opening for the master bedroom to connect to a garden space outside. And then in terms of character for the facade, none of the rhythm is going to be changed. None of the opening sizes are going to be changed, but there are some wall space within the void for the front door that we would be removing to introduce a larger front door. And this is the same one as the previous slide, just blown up a little bit bigger for reference. So if you can see my cursor, the section I'm showing next is essentially a site section with massing cut from 4th Avenue through the entry roof that's existing, through the new proposed roof structure that will create the new entry hierarchy, and then through the pool and then cabana and garage space at the back. So you can use this view to understand like massing what we are introducing, like this roof structure. It's just for shade and weather conditions like rain, so that people can freely move between the north and the south building, as that's the only connection between the two buildings. It doesn't matter what the weather is. All of the roof structures that we are introducing and the cabana and garage towards the back are lower in height to the main structures. We max out at 12 feet for any of the new build, and the existing structures are at 15. The site itself has a height restriction of 40 because it's an HR3 property. And this section also, it clearly defines like the sense of there's the entry court, then the entry terrace, then you get the central courts towards the back, and then the back garden. So this is kind of showing the same thing that I just showed on the axis, but just as a site plan reference, existing entry court where we will be introducing a water feature, so it creates the sense of coolness. Like conceptually, the project was about creating an urban oasis as a big picture concept, so that all the void spaces between the masses would be vegetated with native Sonoran landscaping, and we've got a landscape architect who's helping us with that. To really for the content, for like the lifestyle of the clients, to really create like a great indoor-outdoor connection. And because they're going to be moving between the masses, making use of the garage or the cabana space or the north building or the south building as they move through kitchen spaces and bedrooms, kids lounge area and bedrooms will all be located in the north building, where we're not really doing any work right now, but they will be coming towards the south building for like a lounge space and the primary kitchen, for instance. So we always wanted those transitional spaces to be through a beautifully vegetated desert landscape. And that will also do a general cooling towards the site for the ambient temperature. So on the south, the 4th Avenue elevation, like I said, like essentially none of the proportions or sizes of the window or this puncture here for the entry, we're not changing any of that in terms of size. We are taking out this front door and the little bits of wall that are drywalling, like to the side of it, to create one larger door that will pivot open into this courtyard space. And then we'll be removing this little roof structure, and we will be replacing all the windows to be double hung wood frames. Consistent with the neighborhood. And then this one window towards the right over here, we will be taking out, but not putting a window in to create an exterior space for an office environment that the client can use instead of the courtyard that will be covered and shaded. And this is the floor plan to show within that southern building. All the gray walls is what we are adding within the space. So being very mindful of the existing historic walls that are there, and doing a light infill with drywalling to create the spaces that we require, which is a home office for the client, their master bedroom, walk-through closet space, and ensuite bathroom. This is that node I was talking about earlier. So as you come into the entry courtyard, you will have this arrival on a stone terrace that has a larger glazing towards the southern building, and similarly in the northern building that creates, this is the arrival point. This is the main axis for going into the two buildings and also circulating between the two buildings. We're not changing any of the walls to this end of the project, except for introducing a larger opening towards the back to create a better indoor-outdoor connection for the indoor kitchen, outdoor kitchen lounge space. But essentially all of the massing that you see in terms of furniture, the light brown, is going to be casework that are like objects placed in the space, so not even attaching them or hanging them from the existing structure. So almost thinking of the existing structure as a ruin that we want to respect, and placing objects inside and up against walls only. Also the structure, the roof structure I'm introducing between the northern and the southern building, and similarly at the end of the southern building, is detached from the existing structure to be respectful again of this old versus new. The color, the material choices is also in contrast but complementary to the existing structure, so that you can always see the old versus the new. And then towards the back of the property, the double garage with an open air cabana space, which is essentially just a lounge, and then a pool with a pool deck. This is just giving you a sense of that elevation coming through the entry, and then where there's an existing window and door next to each other that goes into a room beyond that space. We're taking out this bit of wall in between and creating one larger opening to create that sense of arrival for the northern building, and then doing the same move for that southern building. And yeah, you can see how the elevation on 4th Avenue doesn't change in terms of its rhythm or the puncture openings. It's just where there is going to be an existing window, a replaced window in it or an opening. And in the elevation on Railroad, where we would have the garage on the lot line with our property walls. These are some sun studies we did for the project. to understand like spaces of relief, like between summer and winter, and to make sure that we're placing program within this oasis, this garden space, where we want sun in the summer or in the winter, but no sun in the summer, and for the pool placement. So to being mindful of like where the solids and voids exist on the space, on the site. This is just from the other view from Railroad. I included this slide because this shows the overall total architectural material palette that the project uses, both interior and exterior. So all the casework, all the neutrals, the landscape elements that we're going to be pulling in. And then this slide connects more specifically to exterior conditions and landscaping, where we're going to be making use of the basalt rock and the darker tones of that, what that brings into the landscaping, decomposed granite, our Coronado brown ripraps, natural vegetation. And then this is kind of like a reduced palette for everything that you will physically see on 4th Avenue and on Railroad, whether it's the existing structure that we will be painting in this off-white soft color, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's kind of like a tonal range that we'll probably test out on site a bit. And in the wood frame windows, the natural vegetation that will be living out there. We're making use of existing reclaimed wood from when the project burned down years back. Those wood panels still live on site, and we want to be reclaiming those to make that the entry gate into the courtyard, and then making use of the basalt rocks for little garden wall spaces or benches. So this is essentially what you would encounter once you've gone through the entry gate into the entry courtyard, where you can see the massing of the southern building and the northern building remaining unchanged, except for the intervention of a larger glass panel on both ends underneath this insert, essentially, of an entry terrace. The landscaping would be natural, and then only at this node where the circulation happens between north and south is there going to be a hardscape for ease of flow. And then, like I said, it's a solid roof so that they can use it within all the weather. This is when we are sitting on the outside kitchen and lounge space, looking towards the open air cabana and pool. Simple massing, similar to the territorial style, and then with also similar to that style, like the attachment of roof structure to the fronts is kind of what's happening with this outdoor kitchen space and that space between the north and the south building. And then from within the cabana, looking back at the central courtyard, where you can see that cover between north and south building, and then the outdoor kitchen, where we have that larger opening to create this indoor-outdoor connection. And then, like I mentioned, like essentially the interior remains unchanged in like where there is historic walls. We are introducing one larger opening here for indoor-outdoor living and connection. And then all the casework elements are freestanding elements just sitting up against the wall, essentially. In the kitchen space here, we're making use of stainless steel. There's a lot of skylights in the project already, and we would like to bring that play of light with the kind of sunset and tonal qualities we get here in Tucson to bring that into the space. And the stainless steel helps bring that color tone in because it picks up on its surrounding colors. And this is that entry space. So the doors that we will introduce in the south building, and similarly, if you look through there, like to that northern building with the hard space scape on the outside. So this would be your arrival space within the southern building, where we've got coat closets and library shelves, and there would be some kind of more loungy furniture in here. From this, they transition either towards the right to get to the main kitchen space, or towards the left, and that is the master bedroom. And then this is the transition through the walk-through closet in the master bedroom to where we have the sleeping end of the bedroom and the ensuite bathroom. And that's it.
It's a beautiful building, and you are a very accomplished designer, and I respect Rick Joy greatly. And if I were in Ibiza, I would love to stay in what you are proposing. But there's a couple things that I do want to clarify. You are in a historic preservation zone,
Yes.
and some of the things that you described as being decorative are not. And I don't know how well you know the history of that building. The front segment, which is a square, and why there is a wall that goes all the way up and has always been retained. You can see it in slide 7. Was the original footprint and structure of the 1917 building. The 2 wings were added through the period till 1936. The date of 1923 is an average date that Pima County did with it. The fire was, but it was built always as multifamily, and they were essentially a series of small row houses off of an interior courtyard. It is wider than the lot you own. It's 66 feet wide the way it sits, and because it's historic, it stays that way. Our purview is on the perimeter, but anything you do needs to be compatible with both the district and the development zone, which is either side of your block of South 4th Avenue. And I noticed a lot of the illustrations you show are around the city or in different districts or have different standards, and they're a little bit different here. So there
Are you
are,
talking about the setbacks for that? Sorry.
pardon?
Is that for the setbacks?
No, it is for everything you do to the exterior of an historic building that's listed on the National Register.
Right. Yeah.
So wall openings and stuff like that typically aren't allowed in the contributing structure. The period of significance stops at 1945. So there are not a lot of very modern presenting renovations of shells in the district. There are quite a few more of them over in the barrio. So there's a couple of things. For instance, the metal braces that you said were decorative are actually structural components. The fire damaged all of the brick, which was softed brick. The previous owner, Mr. Dodd, stuccoed it. Complaints were filed. SHPO concurred that it was a adequate treatment after the fact for the damaged brick structure, but all the windows and doors on all the facades for both currently the assessor's office lists it as a single family residence and a guest house, but all of the exterior facades of the original building actually are our purview, even if they're on the interior of the lot, and taking out huge segments to get rid of the history of the row houses might present a bit of a problem. And a big double garage on Arizona Avenue. We'll need to take a look at that block to see if there are any in that particular zone, but you may need to consider 2 smaller doors and being more historically compatible at the perimeter of the lot.
Mhm.
It also looks like a slider is being proposed for that south wall and a big new opening. And
At this one over here.
yes, that one there.
It could be a double door, I think, into the courtyard space.
Okay, we may have to look at that detail more readily. Sliders are prohibited in the neighborhood
Okay.
across the form. But yeah, there's been a very long history with it. A lot of the stuff that you are removing, like all the additions to the rear and kind of the metal shade structures and all the other stuff. The carport that exists there now that is made out of steel was approved after the fact. But it was not reviewed, and none of those things and the cisterns and all the rest of it have permits or are considered part of the contributing elements of the property. So it's fine if you take them down, but we will be looking closely at whatever you're proposing to make sure they're compatible with the district. Other than that, that's just kind of a starter. I want to open it up to the board for thoughts to provide feedback. Stan, do you want to start?
Did you say me?
Yeah, why not?
All
I'm
right,
being random.
okay. Yeah, I have a number of questions regarding things that I saw on the drawings that I'm not too sure I understood.
Mhm.
Number one, on A 1.01, you've got a section that's bubbled and it says update. What does that mean? And what has that got to do with this presentation, if anything?
Oh, are you referring to the link that Michael Tuku shared on the agenda?
I have, it was a set of drawings that I received, and I'm wondering what that meant to us as a courtesy interview or courtesy review. Does that have anything to do with us?
No,
I can speak to it a bit. We got, just for the record, we got a truncated version of about, it was a very large file of 27 megabytes, but it was only about 35 pages. So this is a much more complete presentation than we saw. The
Okay.
bubble refers to the new code for new build houses where everything has to be handicap accessible, and access doors will still need to be wide in bedrooms, and things will still need to be wide enough for fire code. But otherwise, those are for new buildings, not renovating an existing historic structure.
All right, okay, that's fine then. It becomes a non-issue. On A 1.02, I counted that there's going to be 3 new openings or 3 modified openings in the existing structure. I agree with John on the south elevation where you've got a sliding door that wouldn't be appropriate. We need to look at something as an option on that. The others, you simply say in your plan description that these are new doors or new windows. It gives me nothing in terms of what the material usage is, the profile, or the designation of that door. So we need a little bit more in terms of understanding what you were actually putting in there for new doors and windows.
Mm-hmm.
And like John said, the sliders would be a problem. The
Right.
aluminum sliders or metal sliders or whatever you might have on there. On A 2.01, you're demoing the existing entry wall. And that's one of the only things I saw a demo on the exterior, other than openings that you're putting into the existing building. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you repeat that? That on which
On detail
are you?
on sheet 2.0 or 2.01, there's a note 26.01. It says demo existing entry wall. And that's the only place that I saw on the drawings other than new openings that you're doing any demolition. Is that correct?
I'm just trying to locate the 2.01.
2.01 and it's note 26.01.
It may be on a page that was on the plans that Mr. Taku posted for us to review, rather than your plan set. And I do want to clarify, that was a completely open entry courtyard. You pass through a breezeway into the front courtyard, and that wall was added by the previous owner, and he installed a single door in it to match development zone standards, but it did not actually get reviewed and approved by the board. So it's fine to take that out, and a wider, smoother entrance probably is appropriate, since it is replicating a larger the opening was always there into a breezeway into the courtyard, but it was open and you could see all the way from South 4th Avenue.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But a large swinging 6-foot door that doesn't present with details that are appropriate for the district may need some design modification. And the set of plans that we got don't clearly show quite what you're doing in that little entry inset that is all new, or that you are taking out one of the historic front windows that was originally double hung and opening it to provide a new space into a courtyard, which I don't have any idea what I think about at the moment.
I'm not too sure where you're talking about an existing double hung that you're taking out, John.
The window to the right of the current.
We lost you.
Yeah. The window just south of the entry opening is proposed now to be removed entirely to provide an open window opening into an interior courtyard that you can see into instead of a window.
Is that on the 4th Avenue side?
Yes, right on.
That's on 4th building, similar to the reference images that I had in the beginning part of the presentation.
And I do want to suggest that the property at South 4th Avenue at I think 16th Street that had a lot of those new walls was a project and was never reviewed and is considered in violation of the neighborhood and is not a precedent to be used. It's currently, I think, 28 condo units that were assembled. Some of the individual structures on that site are historic, but that wall shouldn't be used as your design language.
You're talking about the little compound, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several other things I saw that were around the neighborhood are actually non-reviewed, non-permitted, but existing characteristics that present in the neighborhood, which happens, but we can't use them as the precedent that allows you to use them as a precedent.
Okay.
All right, and going on with some other comments that I have on your elevation of this South 4th Avenue presentation, your drawing indicates one large pane of glass on all of the existing windows. But when I walked over there, there were obviously most likely single replacement windows that were added.
Yeah, the drawing that I had on my presentation, I can it's a progress drawing for the purpose of this discussion. And we will, so I wanted to pull it up to show that we are not changing the rhythm or the size of any of those windows, but we will be replacing the existing windows, which are vinyl, with a double hung wood Douglas fir window for all of the windows on the 4th Avenue western facade, that facade, and then just ideally that larger door into the courtyard, but it's within that pre-existing breezeway opening, like recessed.
I didn't see that on the set of drawings that I had. It was no indication that you were replacing those with wood windows, wood double hung windows. Did you see that, John?
The previous owner was supposed to install all wood double hung windows all the way across 4th Avenue. He later installed what he said were metal clad wood windows
Right,
on that facade,
right.
and they were retroactively granted by Jonathan Mabry. But if they are vinyl, I'm delighted you're taking them out and replacing them with wood windows, and wood double hung windows, and we do now allow cladding, metal cladding on all wood windows, so that's a great improvement. However, all the windows on that property were all wood double hung windows, some with multi-panes. There were no casements, and there were no fixed, and there were no clerestories. All of those things were done by the previous owner without review.
So are you saying that all interior windows that we were not able to see by visual inspection were at one time double hung wood windows?
Yes, and you can still see them on the assessor's site, and some of the other records from around the neighborhood. But that's what that courtyard originally presented.
Okay, well, on the set of drawings that we're asking for a courtesy review, doesn't tell us anything about the existing windows on the interior of the courtyard as being removed. They're just identifying them as existing windows or doors.
No, we're not removing, so I'm just trying to find one of the interior courtyard views really quick. We're not replacing any of these interior courtyard windows, which is for the most part, they're kind of a mixed match, where there's wood inside, wood clad on the outside with black aluminum, except for the couple of windows on 4th Avenue, which are really bad quality windows. So that's why we would like to replace them with a wood double hung. So it's like all of these are going to remain, but essentially this one door and windows where we would like to introduce a larger piece of glass to make it the hierarchy for the entry into that building. And these windows back here, which are completely out of character to this facade, we would like to remove completely and have it just be the stucco wall instead, because there are skylights and other windows in that space.
Yeah. None of that got reviewed. That was just done.
Okay.
So it's fine that you take out the non-historically compatible fabric that you find on the property and provide a better design solution.
All right. Going on from my comments on sheet A 2.03, that is basically the new floor plan as you're presenting it. I don't understand. You have big check marks in a bunch of rooms, in a number of rooms. Does that have any significance? What are you telling us with that large check mark?
Doesn't have any significance to you.
I don't see it on this plan. But the one I've got, it's got large check marks.
It doesn't have any significance to this meeting.
Okay, very good. On note 8, .3, I think it is, you call out a frameless window, steel L profile. You know, it says, I'm not too sure what you're saying there in terms of material, and I don't know what you mean by steel L profile.
Sure. So it's for this little window here.
Yeah.
It is where there is a existing like front door. So we're reducing the size of that opening, like bringing the opening lower. So it's a low window in the room. And I'm gonna go to my renders because it shows. So it's this window here. So you can see the water feature from within the building. And it is a piece of glass that is fixed within an equal angle, like a middle profile.
All right, my understanding is a fixed glass, but it's a steel frame.
It's a steel frame, so that it essentially appears frameless, just a piece of glass that's attached to the outside of the building.
Right, I understand what you're saying. Okay, very good. Let's see on.
You can see in here that's that window essentially.
All right. On A 2.04, you have a gate on the north side of the carport, but there's no designation on that. I'm assuming that's new because it's not showing on the existing. It's not obviously it's not on the existing. If that's part of the presentation, we need to know what that gate is made out of and what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm assuming on A 2.042, the 10-foot setback, that's one of the variations you're asking for from the city.
Yes.
Okay.
So the variations that we would like to ask for is one, the setback towards the east end of the property, to have the garage essentially on the property line, similar to the 36 other lots within Railroad that have either garages or residences on that lot line. And then the setback towards the north, instead of the 10-foot, if we could reduce that to 5 feet to create better spacing between the new structure, the existing structure, given that the entirety of the northern building is already on that property line, and a portion of the southern building is also on the property lines already, similarly to the west.
Okay. On A 3.01, you've got two doors that are noted on 8.02, and they're called hardwood doors with insulated glass, typical. I mean, hardwood insulated glass. But again, it gives us no indication of what the door and the frame is and what the hardwood door actually looks like. Those are the things that we're interested in terms of making sure that they're compatible with the neighborhood. So when you make your next presentation, we need to actually see elevations of what you intend for that door to look like.
Right.
Including the frame material that you're intending to use.
Yeah. Can because I think I can't pull up that link for some reason now that Daku shared with everyone. But so are you John, when you mentioned sliding doors being prohibited, is that even for like spaces that connects to these interior courtyard spaces that's not visible from any of the streets to create a better indoor-outdoor connection? Like essentially, there's one of those for the kitchen space that is not allowed. This portion here.
Technically, no. But obviously you have a client who, having already spent 1.68 million on this property, has a very large budget to do some very nice things with this property. I believe there might be some mitigation efforts to reconfigure the property so that what is technically considered the interior of your house presents a different historically compatible exterior face that would allow you more freedom on your interior courtyards within the building. Does that make sense?
It does. Is the process for that like similar to like a variance application?
No, it would probably be a design solution. So, for instance, if you were to present a modified rear exterior elevation for the building that encloses the courtyard to the interior of your building, you would have more leeway.
Okay.
But currently, as we understand the property, there are two structures that are separated by an outdoor courtyard that have various versions of 4 exteriors that are in the purview of this board for review, for compatibility, for materials, sizes, etc., of all the openings to ensure their historic character.
Mhm.
It's come up a few times. The code basically says all exterior facades are within our purview.
Mhm.
As the buildings exist currently, there are 2 buildings with exterior faces.
Yes.
That could be changed in the way you think about your remodel.
I'd like to say something here too, in terms of what John is saying, and that is that having worked with Rick Joy for 8 years, I can understand why I'm seeing some of the things I'm seeing, because I see a lot of Rick Joy's design vocabulary within the design of this project. I think Rick Joy is an incredibly talented architect. And I know that, I don't know if he still has an office in the barrio or not, but I know he had one there for a while and it's probably still there. But
Yep.
he did a lot of he did some renovations in the barrio that I think probably went beyond what, if I was in the barrio advisory board, I may not have accepted. I like them, but I don't know that they were appropriate for the barrio historical. That being said, I think I see that here, and I think one way to maybe temper it, and what John is saying is that if we're well behind the walls of a courtyard, I would at least try to say, for example, where you have a sliding door, it becomes maybe 2 French doors or something that has more wood in it to express the actual material of the doors. And where you've got, there was one picture where it looked like it was almost a frameless door in the large opening where it may have been butt joints with the glass itself. I think that becomes another expression of, yeah, well, that's a little bit better, different than what I was thinking of, but yeah. There's a lot of more glass than would be normally seen in any type of historical preservation work that we're doing in the neighborhood. So that's something that maybe we can consider a little bit more wood exposure on that would help. I understand what you're doing, and it's a very modern look, but we're in a historic district and we're trying to be as responsible in terms of recognizing the existing vocabulary of the neighborhood, and you would never see windows like that in the neighborhood.
One thing that will give you a little bit of leeway, you are converting 2 structures into a single family residence that will present as a single house. So what you do on the interior of that single family residence, knock yourself out. But while it still presents as 2 buildings, we can't necessarily approve some of the things that you're suggesting with the current iteration of the design.
So, I mean, that is an interesting comment because, like, you basically saying that if I do the connection between the north and the south building as an enclosed, conditioned, like, connection, then I can introduce a giant opening. But that connection as an enclosed, conditioned space is much less respectful of the existing historic courtyard, which I am deliberately trying to maintain as like the focal point of sense of arrival for transition between existing structures. As do you understand what I'm saying? It's like
I do. I do. We are in a very tricky situation because as a board, we have to apply the code, and it's not just 5.8.9. It's also the Technical Standards Manual, section 9-02, which has Armory Park standards. And our purview is our purview delineated by the code. And unfortunately, some elements of the code reflect the understanding of what constitutes historic in 1974. So we try to creatively find solutions with applicants to ensure that the building remains contributing, but presents on the exterior of the property as a compatible or contributing original element. And new things within development zones that are compatible is a funny word, and it is subjective. You still need to fit within your development zone and relate to everything else around. One thing I do want to clarify about the 10-foot setback along Arizona Avenue, that is a TEP, new mandated easement, and for contributing structures that are along the street edge, they are grandfathered in, but they have instructed the planning department to not issue any permits for new structures within that 10-foot setback on either side.
Are you talking about railroad?
Yes, railroad. So there's several different people that are going to complicate your planning efforts to get an approved design. You showed one building that exists right at the street front, but you are introducing the vocabulary of a two-door garage also at a 0 lot line. Your address is on 4th Avenue. That is the back of your lot. So you'll have to use development zone standards to create a compatible garage, but you may still have to create a parking area and set it into the lot more based upon the realities of the TEP easement and some other things that hopefully someone in PDSD can help walk you through. It's a little bit more difficult now that everything's online.
Yeah.
We're just trying to provide feedback at this
Sure.
state because it's courtesy of flags that would normally occur to us. And you may wish to retain that front wall at least has a structural member that's visible from the air to define the front building and open it up down below on the interior of your building rather than remove it entirely.
Are you talking about the courtyard wall?
Yeah. And you may need to work with a structural engineer to see what you can take out and what you may need to introduce between that narrower width space between the two buildings for those very, very fragile walls that are probably put together with material other than structural brick, in my humble opinion.
So are you saying that this dividing wall here
It
has
was that dividing wall is the footprint of the original 1917 structure and was considerably structurally mandated and has always been included in every iteration of plans we've ever seen for this building, to maintain the integrity of less than optimum building standards. Has were supports between the two buildings that are currently steel that I believe a building inspector allowed for the replacement of what was wood beam structures holding up those two walls originally.
Okay.
So if you just take them out thinking they're decoratively, you could get collapsed walls.
Okay. Let's see what else I have.
There is currently a rear wall that's there to shield somewhat the view of the back.
On the railroad?
Yes.
Yes.
That's inset to the west wall of the guest house. And that guest house is a funny thing. It wasn't there when in 1974 or 1991, when it was registered. So, and its remodel was never approved. So the clerestory windows and the angled roof and all the other stuff about it, it's not a contributing structure, but it's there and it's been there for a while. This property's been toyed with an awful lot. And but you see that one wall that you're proposing to remove right now in the basically the square of the front building,
This one?
that has always been considered a structural wall. So you may need to deal with it to retain some element to stabilize that structure
Okay.
rather than just removing it.
This idea of internal space, like internal courtyard space, does any of that become more applicable when I raise my property walls, because the clients do want to increase it from the existing 6 feet to 9 feet, because there's like sight lines into the property from this end. And similarly here, because of the wall heights, there's structural integrity already compromised on some of these walls because of trees and root systems. So we are looking at fixing that. But so if these walls, everywhere where there's not a structure on the property line, become 9 feet, no one is ever going to look in there. Like, does that help?
Well, yes and no. The buildings code says that perimeter walls can be 7 feet. The zoning code says they can be no higher than 6 feet. And in special districts like the infill incentive district, or the pad for the TCC, or a few other locations, higher perimeter walls have been allowed as a design feature for these enclosed courtyards. But in Armory Park, you can't have 9-foot perimeter walls. It's considered an intrusion to your neighbors. The previous owner built the walls on the front courtyard on the south to 7 feet using the building code rather than the existing code, and were waived because the city didn't want to be sued. But don't plan on it.
So these walls here that are 15 feet high and it's a shaded court.
That particular segment was originally a wood frame glass greenhouse with a shed roof. That was replaced without a permit and included into the structure with a raised parapet that matched the larger building. You'll notice the city has no plans of this building.
Yes, that's why you are telling me a lot of new information.
So we're trying to help out resolve some of the things of both what you're seeing that's existing that the owner bought, what was done in the most recent iteration in 2015, 16, 17, and what existed before that, and then what the area standards actually are as they apply to this structure. And they're all very different. So, you know, you are designing a beautiful building. It's just not a typical Armory Park building, and it does have to fit in and not impose itself on any of the neighbors.
I get that, and I want to be respectful of the historic neighborhood, which is why I think the big moves for our project was everywhere where it will not be visible from the streets. It's like we're basically we're almost doing nothing on the 4th Avenue facade, other than really cleaning it up to be more appropriate, with like better windows, and the railroad. There's just a lot of examples along that road where there's a lot of massing that exists on the lot line. And we were hoping to make use of that to create better spacing between new build and existing on the property.
Yeah, even if we approved it from a neighborhood perspective, a 0 lot line for a garage because of the massing of this particular site, you probably will not get a permit through the building department with that setback because of utility easements along that minor avenue.
Okay.
John, let me ask you a question regarding that setback requirement. I think it would be advisable for you to, you, the architect, to visit the city and actually review that 10-foot setback along Railroad, because I would personally not have a problem as a neighborhood advisory to accept a 0 lot line on Railroad. I don't have a problem.
I agree. I agree.
I would agree with John that maybe we go with 2 separate openings for the car entry, but I wouldn't have a problem. So you might want to check with the city to see if you can get a variance on that, because I would be willing to say that that's not an issue for me. But it's got to be something that would have to be approved by the city and by Tucson Electric Power's new restrictions.
I am signing off, and
Helen, do you have comments? Let's switch to you directly. I'm sorry we have hogged the conversation. My apologies.
No, my only concern is whether this is 1 building or 2. And I think that's sort of at the basis of discussion here, because if it becomes a single building, I think the criteria would change. And the other thing I would say, in addition to the garage on Railroad and the setback issue there, I think that is probably an issue. The other point is lot utilization. I wonder how much lot coverage you're ending up with here and whether that is going to be a problem.
That's indicated on the front sheet of the drawing. It's like 63%, and they're not at the maximum 70.
Yeah, we double checked that, and we are still well below that coverage.
Right, I saw that too. Yeah.
Okay, that's it for me. Take care.
Thank you, Helen. I appreciate that. I'm sorry. And off, I see that we've lost Lynn as well. We still do have a quorum with 5 members. Maurice, you should give some comments too, and Pat. So does anybody need to leave immediately? We thought this would be quicker.
Okay, well, mine is going to be pretty quick. First of all, I want to thank Annalisa for the presentation. It's very professional, and I really appreciate it. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, I do appreciate the wooden dial-hang windows on the 4th Avenue side, and from there on, unfortunately, I'm not overly happy. I was in that building before it got renovated. I was in there after it burnt up, and I'm horrified of what happened to it. Whoever was in that building before would understand. Okay, it's may have been a frame and stucco, but the way it was done, it almost looked like adobe, and there was a softness to it which was very, very special. It's all gone. It's all sharp angles, and like John said, you might as well be in Ibiza somewhere, but definitely not in Tucson. Okay, so that's really not a very good surprise. Also, let's go back to the front door. I do remember after visiting that building that the front door was actually a steel gate, which gave a view of the inner courtyard, which meant that building so special. Not only was it special on the inside, but it was special from the outside when you'd walk on 4th Avenue, and that's gone. Now, okay, it was replaced with a door with a piece of plywood next to it, whatever was used. Okay, it is wrong. Okay, this is not historically correct, and I expect that gate to be back where it belonged, with a view of the courtyard, because that's what made the charm of that building. Now, I understand that the homeowner is going to want some kind of privacy. So, all right, maybe it could be a gate with some kind of a glass door behind it. Okay, some frosted glass or whatever, to keep some kind of privacy. But I think removing that gate, okay, without review was pretty bold on from the previous developer of this property. So the rest of the project, okay, I could see some issues with TEP and utilities on the railroad side of it. TEP has its own ways, and it's, it is the way it is. Okay. I think the project is pretty good. I remember the east side of the building, with a very small kitchen and a very small apartment, and I'm glad it's gone. Okay. There's been a lot of improvements, but again, like I said, I cannot believe, okay, what happened to those soft curves that made the charm of that building. It's all gone. And I guess we don't have anything to say because it's on the inside of the property. But then again, okay, the inside of the property was visible from the street. It was just a plain steel gate at the entrance. So, we lost a part of Tucson over here, and I'm not very happy about it. So, those are my 2 cents. But again, Annalisa, your presentation is very professional. I think you're doing a great job. Okay, I appreciate you, taking into consideration, the neighborhood. Okay, it's a historic neighborhood, and it's an interest of the homeowner, to bring it back to its historic level. Okay, that's going to increase its value. Okay, changing it into something that does not belong in its neighborhood is going to reduce its value, not increase it. Okay. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Maurice.
John, you still there?
Did
John?
we lose John? Did we lose John?
Muted.
Hello, John.
Yes, I'm back on. Pat, I'm sorry. Pat, you're next. My apologies. It was my fault.
All righty. We will, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. I think it's a very ambitious project, and it's incorporating a number of previous constructions. It's respecting the vocabulary of the building and its openings. We didn't discuss the swimming pool, and I don't know if that is a particular problem in this particular case or not. I wouldn't think that it would be, but I'd like to get that addressed before we close up tonight.
Well, we do have a number of swimming pools in the neighborhood, so I guess my question would be, why would that be a problem?
Right.
Yeah, technically permits are not reviewed in an historic district, and the permit would be a separate pool permit for this property. So we wouldn't necessarily review the pool itself, but the hardscape around it as it attaches to the proposed cabana would be within our purview to discuss.
Okay, but the swimming pool in itself would not be a reason to reject this project.
No, no.
And
There's no reason.
wasn't
There-
doing that.
Yeah.
It's that we hadn't talked about it. I thought we ought to bring it up before we close.
No, it's a good point. Most pools should be reviewed more than they are, but the code unfortunately didn't get written that way.
Right. That's all I've got.
Okay.
So
Stan,
in terms of the, I'm just wanna, as we're on the pool, in terms of the hardscape, around the pool, there is two material options getting investigated by myself and the client. One being the basalt rock that is present within Armory Park as a surface. And we are talking with stonemasons to understand how we can get suitable level and what the joints would look like, etc., if we go with that direction. And then the option 2 is a natural clay paver that is charred. So essentially a clay paver that they overfire in the kilns to essentially burn them so they are darker in appearance. And to just lay it out like a paved edge that would be cemented where needed for the coping. But that's essentially this. So the surface would within that cabana space would either look like this, making use of the historic basalt rocks, or it would be this charred natural clay paver to create the surface as the coping and going into that cabana space.
those are all beautiful. If you can source basalt, great. They haven't mined it from a mountain for at least 30 years.
Yeah, we have a source from about an hour and a half away from Tucson,
Right.
and I have a couple of boulder like riprap size pieces that we reviewed for color consistency with the historic neighborhood, because depending on which lava flow they come from, the colors change quite a bit, and it matches the Armory Park basalt very beautifully. So we're investigating those two directions at the moment. If you guys have comments on that as a material choice, that would be great to hear.
I think they're beautiful, and I think it's great. I'm apoplectic at what your cost per square foot for this proposal is going to be, but some people have different budgetary concerns. I personally, I think any of those things are compatible. It would be more the footprint of the hardscape, but it also doesn't appear that it would be visible from the street.
Yeah, no, it won't.
The biggest things will be wall heights, and what presents on the historic facades that are visible. Just so you know, all that building was originally soft brick. It had double arch voussoirs over each window. There is the trace of all of that in all the original window openings, which were closed up as subsequent development necessitated for the properties on either side. And that's why it now presents as a very large box.
Mhm.
But structurally, you may not be able to open things up quite as easily as you may be thinking, because what presents for the structure of the building is not what's really inside it.
Right.
Well, I also wanted to interject in between, but the indoor landscape is not correct. This is the wrong tree. The original tree was a palm tree. It was this huge palm tree, which added, something even more magical to the property. So I don't know if it's something you may want to bring up to your client, but it really it made the property.
There were some nice Washingtonian palm trees that were planted in the first 2 decades of the century on that site, but they were destroyed by the fire. But they were a feature in old photographs of the building. The landscape architecture world in Tucson has moved away from palm trees.
Yeah,
More-
we're working very closely with a company called Wilder, and they focus on making use of only Sonora native vegetation in all of their projects. So we are working with them to almost like consider like rewilding the spaces between the architecture, so that the vegetation can bring a sense of coolness in the ambient temperature, as this project calls for a lot of outdoor circulation, so that I really do not want to physically connect with a conditioned space, the north and the south building. I feel that it's more respectful to the courtyard language of this project to keep that as an open air connection. And because of that, the ambient temperature outside is a big consideration for us. So bringing in like a lot of native vegetation to help with that, along with the water feature in that entry courtyard, for airflow over the water body, things like that. Those are all considerations to make this multiple structure lot really function in a comfortable way, as one residence, one house. Yeah.
See that front gate, okay, took care of that issue of air circulation. Okay, I was going to buy that building, so I really looked into it. Okay, and the air was circulating, from all the way from 4th to Railroad Avenue, and that front gate was essential. Now, there's a way to mitigate again privacy. You could put some kind of privacy screen on the inside of the property, past the gate. But like I said, that front gate was really essential, to the whole air circulation of the property. And the previous developer totally disregarded it. I just put a door and that was it.
Oh, it's this property has a kind of a strange history. I went back and looked at the meeting minutes from when it was reviewed when Bill Duffy was the chair of the advisory board, and it basically says use all wood windows, do not stucco the exterior brick, and maintain a sense of the courtyard. And new perimeter walls should be no higher than 6 feet. It was very simple. Everything that you see that varies from that was done without review on this property, including the odd door on an inset. A number of things were approved by Jonathan Mabry the previous, well, actually 5 HPOs ago, because of pending litigation. And it was taken out of our hands. So I'm delighted you're removing the kind of ad hoc things that are detracting. That the front courtyard was actually an open space with open wrought iron gating that looked through into an open courtyard, but it was always a covered zaguan into that interior courtyard. So your solution may be more elegant, but you may want to introduce the language of historically appropriate double door feature that might be characteristic of the language of the building, which was never Sonoran until 2017.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Right. So because so I just want to like quickly backtrack on the property walls. The like building code, you can go beyond the 6 feet if you have an engineer as part of the exercise, but because it's Armory Park, that doesn't apply.
The development zone standards is 6 feet. There are a couple of instances where a limited higher wall has been allowed. For instance, if there is an historic shed along your side fences that's been there for 70 years that happens to be 10 feet high, we have allowed a new 10-foot wall up against that shed, has a barrier, but the limitation is no more than 50% of the running footage to be higher than 6 feet. And that's all based on old fire codes. So the development code, which rules this area, rather than the building code, which allows for 7 feet, there is nowhere except in commercial districts with different design guidelines that allow anything beyond that. And because this is a residential property, you might be able to do screening elements like trellises inset within the fence that would provide more, some more privacy. But I don't think the planning director would approve 9-foot perimeter walls for privacy on this site. Whatever we say and with the historic commission. And your client should be well aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is, I'm sure, new for them. But also, Barrio Historico technically has very different design standards than Armory Park.
Yeah, because I mean I think this sense of, well, the high walls is the privacy thing for them, but they are familiar with the barrio projects where those walls are as high as their building, like 12, 15 feet, create these courtyards for the row houses there. But
that doesn't exist. There are a few areas over along Stone and in a couple places on South 6th Avenue where buildings from the Sonoran, well, from the territorial era do exist, that language is present in those development zones, and they are in the new National Register of the expanded district that includes some of the western portion of Armory Park. But this building was originally kind of a funky Anglo brick parapeted commercial style building that was built as interior row houses to provide housing for the railroad, but it never had a language of Sonoran type architecture until it was stuccoed. And it's has no reference to Sonoran or that sort of language in its National Register listing. Maria, if you don't have it, I'll send the property record card to you.
I would need to research it.
Okay, we have it. I can send it.
Okay, thank you.
And you can share it with the applicant.
Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Stan, you've got some more specific concerns before you got cut off?
They were pretty minor. I don't have anything real specific. I think the only thing that we'd like to see on the next submittal is more specifics on material usage profiles and elevations of the doors and windows. And one area I saw on A 3.11, you called out clay plaster. I have no idea what clay plaster means here. It's not a term that's standard. It's normal around this neighborhood. At least I've never heard of it before.
Again, I can't pull up this drawing that you're referring to, but I think that's one of the notes for an interior finish, which is an interior clay or lime plaster, so that it will be.
I've heard of lime plaster. I've never heard of clay plaster.
It's the same. It's the same idea. It's like a thicker plaster that goes onto the walls, hand troweled, so it's got a more natural aesthetic.
Okay. And then the only other question I had was that there's on sheet A 3.12 on note 2.10, you call out an existing beam, wood beam, and it appears that it's above the windows and the doors, the big entrance doors that you've got in there, but I don't see, it doesn't show up on the elevations that you show or the interior perspective.
For the kitchen space?
Well, I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's note 2 dash 1 or 2.10, and it just says existing wood beam, and it doesn't give any more detail than that. And I don't know where that occurs and how it affects anything that's inside. Seems like it was right above the entrance. I see one that's running perpendicular to the wall where the big opening is, but I don't know how that affects the window or doors.
I'm having a hard time because I can't pull up that drawing.
Well, again, if these were not the drawings that I don't know how this worked, that we got different drawings than what you've got, but
when you're looking forward, you may want to see the posted plans that we were presented. If you go to the planning and development page and under our board, the package that we were presented is there, and you can see what we're referencing, because that's what
it may not have meant anything. I don't know. It was interior, I'm assuming, but it appeared. I thought it had something to do with the exterior wall. Maybe it doesn't. Okay. But anyway,
it might reference this wood beam and column structure that runs all throughout this southern building.
Okay, well, if I remembered as it having something to do with the exterior doors or windows, but I could be wrong because I can't pull it up right now.
Okay, I will reference those drawings when I revisit the recording of the meeting, just to double check what you are referring to.
Okay.
Yeah, the previous owner did use a lot of reclaimed stuff. sourced from various sites and worked with a building inspector to try to stabilize some of the building where interior walls and other things were taken out. So I'm not sure exactly what you're going to encounter once you dig into this building.
Oh yes, no, that is for sure.
And we don't know. It is fairly likely he used a cement plaster. He did not put on metal mesh to support that over the soft bricks, which will create erosion problems of the walls in the future that you should be aware of. And you may wish to restucco the building appropriately.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly. If he used
Yeah.
cement plaster, it'll probably tear out the bricks over time.
If you do that, there's a good chance it might also restore the original softness and curving of the walls, which was the whole charm of the courtyard.
And just one comment. Most of the structures you're proposing are, I guess, poured concrete structures for your ramadas and things.
Yes. For the outdoor kitchen roof terrace and that entry roof terrace, that's concrete.
The Armory Park design standards do not allow for exposed concrete. So a stucco finish, whatever the structure, should be part of the design language.
I think this is,
Especially since it's going up 12 feet and will be visible from neighboring properties.
this is again the thing for me about creating a contrast that complements the existing, to have just more stucco for the spaces in between the masses wasn't like clearly defining like existing to new. And if you can do a beautiful concrete, then I don't know why that would be worse than or unacceptable compared to stucco.
I agree personally, and I like your architectural design language, but the code specifically says no exposed concrete is allowed in the district. You're obviously very creative and may be able to come up with something where what presents along the property lines is somewhat different than what is visible from the interior of the property.
Okay.
Annalisa, I put in the chat the link to the inventory form.
And we have both the inventory forms, the original one from 1981 and the secondary one. So I'll forward that to you, Maria, so that you can send it to the applicant.
Sounds good, thank you.
You will need to look into TSM section 9-02, and Armory Park has its own guidelines. They were last modified in 1974. We have worked on our design guidelines. They're currently at 40 pages, and we address a whole bunch of stuff, but we've never managed to make it through plans review. They were approved within the board, and we've modified a lot of stuff. We did take a vote that the planning director did allow to be the standard in Armory Park that you can use clad wood windows for replacement. So that's appropriate, but no aluminum sliders, fiberglass, other modern materials are allowed in the district. For reference.
I just saw Milgard windows go in.
A lot of people do things without the advice or interaction of the planning department, and
I get
often
that.
become headaches for subsequent owners.
Yeah, I get that. It's just it's frustrating when an effort is being made to yeah, really respect like the existing structure and being mindful about choices. But then getting like yeah, I mean like the code not being so susceptible to like some of those more mindful interpretations.
We feel your pain,
Um,
but we have to apply the code as it
I get
exists.
it. Mhm.
That does not mean it cannot be. We're only one stage of the review when it becomes a formal review. You're more than welcome to come back for other courtesy reviews. We encourage it, but it has to be at your own initiative.
Mhm.
That way we wouldn't have to make a determination. This board is allowed one legal continuance on a final plan. Then it goes on to the Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee, and they use different standards that are more Secretary of Interior standards, and then it goes to the planning director for a determination, who may or may not choose to accept the recommendations of anybody. So there's a lot of stages here where your arguments can be made.
Mhm. So just a question on that sequencing of submittals. So the presentation I gave you guys, I have made some notes of where you guys would like to see more information on certain elements like finishes and tweaks that might be needed within the project. When that's submitted as a full historic review, do you guys then review that as the official in an official capacity for approval before I actually do the formal permit submittal, or does it run in parallel?
Until you get a planning director's decision after each of the reviewing bodies, the advisory board and then the plans review subcommittee, make their recommendations, final recommendations, because they can continue a case also. When the planning director issues a decision on a property for a development project proposal, only then can you submit to the building department, who may modify it further for building permits. This is a very extensive project. Your client should plan for perhaps a number of months before you get a permit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are we talking like 8 months, 6 months?
It's out of our hands. It's
Oh, Stan, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Yes, it's possible, unfortunately. It could be
Mhm.
that long, but,
Yeah.
you know, hopefully it won't be.
we just try to work with you to develop something that won't get huge pushback from the neighborhood, meets the code, and can move on and provide advice. We are not allowed to design anything for you. All we can do is say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I hope you understand that we are trying to be helpful.
I do, and I appreciate your time. This has gone on quite some time now. So yeah, I appreciate the time, and I will follow up on the comments that you guys were able to provide me. And I guess there's some strategic choices I would need to make with my client. As to certain things that I think that they are like kind of set on that we might have to tweak to get it to a yeah, to like approval process.
Okay. I will tell you, at one point, a property across the railroad did ask for a 2-car garage, and it was denied. about 10 years ago. Those records wouldn't be available to you. I'm not even sure they're available to Maria. But you have to show what sort of garages do face that are approved plans for garages facing. They are never allowed on major avenues. They are sometimes allowed on minor avenues. And they are sometimes allowed on streets, depending upon each specific case. We understand your desire to replace that carport with a garage structure, but you may want to consider something that might be more historically authentic.
Okay.
Presenting, for instance, as a carriage house, and we're not trying to also suggest you have to Disneyfy your proposal. It's just.
Annalisa, I also put in the chat the link to Pro. You can do all kinds of research through that source. You can type an address,
Yeah, and the assessor
parcel
site,
number, and yeah, and that gives you links to the assessors. So your property or the property that John was just mentioning from 10 years ago, technically the plan should be there. But if not, if they were not approved, maybe not.
Mhm.
yeah, the pro site's real iffy. The city didn't fully transition, and a lot of things from the pro site prior to the current and most recent past owner have disappeared from the pro site, and you have to do a special records request. But I'm happy to talk with you. The assessor site does have 66 photographs of this building that show its prior states back to 2015, including the fire damage, some of the interior photos, what the exterior brick walls actually look like, the front entrance. And also, just for reference, we never approved the metal planting areas along the street, but they are existing and considered part of the building, so replanting them is okay.
I'm taking them out.
Okay. The neighborhood preferred plan is street trees,
Mhm.
and the association can help with that.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I'll let you all go. I appreciate the time.
No, I would encourage you to come back with your next iteration for another courtesy review, and then we can do a quick turnaround for a formal review where it hopefully passes more quickly.
Okay. Okay, thank you, John, Stan, Maurice, and Maria. I appreciate it.
And Pat, he's still
And
on.
Pat, he's still on?
No,
Okay.
he's here.
Maria, from your perspective, did we cover things the
I
way
think
you expected?
I think Annalisa received more than plenty feedback.
Yes.
So Annalisa, when you resubmit new materials under this activity number, the TPPRE, shoot an email to Michael Taku and to myself. So it's in our radar, because we are receiving hundreds of applications every month, and things get lost there in the minutia. That could be taken care of quicker.
Yeah.
Um,
You probably have to submit an application, and then it goes through 12 different bodies, none of which are familiar with historic, to approve the application, and then it will go to Michael and Maria, who will assign it a special districts number and then give you the new requirements to upload for an application, and then it comes back here. And if that is a courtesy review, you will have the opportunity of working out the bugs before you go for the full review.
Gotcha.
Does that sound right, Maria?
Yes, that's correct. Overall, and Elisa, you're also very welcome to arrange for a meeting with staff,
Mm-hmm.
and go over your proposal with us first so we can take a look. Right now, we don't have a historic preservation officer in place. Hopefully, in the near future, it will be hired, but we do have design professionals, contracted design professionals at hand that we can reach out to, and they can also provide you with feedback.
Okay, thank you.
No, I wanted to tell you, Annalisa, you're doing a great job, and I do appreciate your professionalism, because it's really really good. And if you can bring the beauty to that building, it'll be so good. And your clients will really really appreciate that, and will
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, like I said, you're doing a great job, and I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I hope you all have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And the recording is obviously going to be the most accurate. I'll do probably a lengthy legal action report, but it has to be in by Monday to meet the requirements for our year-end filing.
Okay. And the
So-
link for the recording, will I follow the same link that I got from Michael Taku to get to this meeting sign up?
If-
Yes, Annalisa, yes, you will go to the Barrio, the Armory Park Advisory Board webpage, and there's a link of, videos in YouTube.
Mhm.
I'm gonna download it later tonight. I'm just gonna allow
if you
Zoom to download it, and then I'll ask tomorrow staff members to upload it into YouTube. So I would check again at the end of the day tomorrow, or Thursday for the video.
if you just go to the planning department main page and then do the boards and commissions, which is about a third of the page down, at the bottom of all the listing for the advisory boards is a link to all the board videos as well.
Okay.
Because the links don't always work under the individual pages.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'll put it in the chat as well, the link. And you just need to go down looking for the link for the meeting recordings on YouTube. And there it is.
Oh, I see it. Thank you.
You're welcome to get my information from Maria too. I'm happy to provide non-binding opinions about things.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Sure. Okay. We'll move on to item 5, the design guideline projects. I am actually working on them again, and we'll probably come back with a draft through at some point next year. Hopefully has a citizen advisor. We'll see. I do have all the Armory Park records, and I will, and that main page. And so whoever becomes chair next year, when the full new board members come on, make sure that they have access to that stuff moving forward as well.
Is this your last meeting, John?
Well, we have confirmation from the city clerk's office that they're not going to remove Pat or me until we are officially replaced.
Okay,
So you may see me in January and February
okay.
for a little bit. Technically, at the first meeting of the new year, you elect a new chair, and hopefully I can get Steve and Matt here, even if they are not formally appointed and have gone through the rigmarole of swearing their oath in front of a notary. So the conversation can be had with a quorum.
Okay.
We'll see. The planning department, Maria, should have both of the bios, and I'll still trying to help facilitate all that sort of stuff. And I'll work with you on the drafts. It would be helpful if I could get just a blank page with a city logo to clean up some stuff for you. I know you're swamped here at the end of the year for the previous sets of minutes.
Yeah, we're preparing 6, maybe 7 Lars, you know, from the last week and a half of meetings. But I think we all can handle it, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We
I do need to
have a
resend
couple of extra hands helping us. So
good. I do need to send you some drafts again so that you can reformat them before they get officially posted. But
okay, thank you.
Call to the board. Oh, minor reviews. I think that Michael took care of the solar project at, I think it's 842 South 3rd. Because he met with Ricky Rojas and used my comments, but I have not seen a director decision on that particular application come forward, and minor reviews have been held up until Michael returns for the next calendar year. He's coming back at the end of December, isn't he?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And then I'll be gone too.
Uh-oh, when are you leaving?
Next week I'll be gone. I'll be Michael Taku will be back before I come back. But we have Dan Bursuk also available in case needed. So there's eyes on projects despite Michael and I not being around.
I'm glad I have your cell phone numbers and I have never given them out. Okay, anything for call to the boards? The only thing that I can think of is the Armory Park Neighborhood Party was a success. At the last Neighborhood Association meeting, Fred Ronstadt, who is working with Safford School, showed a new proposal for a giant 18-foot steel sign painted blue and orange. Maria, you need to hear this. That is interior lit with a flashing marquee to be placed on South 4th Avenue across from residences, because that's the only place Safford has an electrical plug that they added when they added the library. They have no power on their grounds or along 13th Street or along 14th, except the remains of the historic lighting cable that traversed the property along the former 5th Avenue frontage. This will need to be corrected. I tried to encourage them to go to the Historic Commission because there is no way in hell that sign will be approved by the Historic Commission as being applicable. If it does come forward for a permit, will you flag it, Maria, so that it does get reviewed? I realize it's
the sign will the sign will be inside school property.
yes, but they showed us an 18-foot tall steel sign with a large backlit area with a they have them on Times Square with the floating banners that constantly zip. And they're like, we could turn it off at 9 o'clock if you want us to. And I'm like, you can't place this there overhanging the sidewalk across from houses. It's the wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually if it's gonna be going through us, through the city, Mr. Burr, because it's state-owned and state-occupied property. And I believe if it's a state or federal owned and occupied property,
They
they don't
did
need to
say
comply with zoning regulations.
they did accept that that is a nationally listed property, so they have to meet some standards. So if you see an application for a sign, try to at least get it to plans review as a courtesy for commentary.
Okay, we'll keep an eye. If you hear
Yeah.
anything before we do, let us know.
Okay, Fred did say that their intention was to go through the process of getting feedback from the city, at least as a courtesy. The school does whatever the school does, but it would really be a detriment to the district if it goes where they're proposing the way it's currently designed. I don't really have anything else. Thank you all again for staying for a very long meeting. Anything from any of the remaining now quorum of 4?
Not here.
Not here.
Okay.
No, nothing.
Okay. Not anything, Stan?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. So Maria, Pat and I will continue until Steve and Matt join. And when is a good time for you and I to have a telephone conversation to work out some year-end stuff?
For the advisory board,
Yes.
looking at my schedule here on the calendar, and what times work best for you?
Do you have any time the afternoon of Thursday or Friday this week?
It would be Friday, I'm gone. So it would have to be, let me look again. Thursday. The morning works better. No, I'm taken. Hold on.
You could call me after hours too if we set a time.
I prefer not to because I'll be gone. So how about on Thursday, sometime around 2 p.m. Would
Great.
that work?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send you the appointment.
Great. Thank you so much for providing. All right. The meeting is, you think this will be posted by Thursday as well?
Correct.
Great. The meeting is adjourned at 8:37 p.m. Everybody have a great holiday season, and I probably will see you all in January.
We're good.
All right.
Happy holidays,
Happy-
everybody.
Happy holidays.
Hey, happy holiday, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks all.